Alright, so in this video we're going to review how to factor out a monomial and factor quadratics. So remember, factoring is when we take out a GCF and have maybe two terms in here. You could have three terms in here. So that's one way of factoring. And then you learned the other way of factoring where you had two parentheses and you had two terms in each, and we did a T-chart, and we had shortcuts, and we had bust up the B's, and we had all of that. So this is going to be a review of how to factor because we're going to add the zero product property on with factoring to solve. So first thing is how to factor these. So if they've got two terms, that means we can't do our T-chart or anything, so we have to find a GCF and pull out the GCF. So first thing is to see what goes into 19, which would be 9 times 2, and the 9 is 3 times 3 times 2. What goes into 24, I'm thinking 6 times 4, which is 3 times 2, and 2 times 2. So now I need to see what they have in common. They have a 3 and a 2 in common, and a 3 and a 2 in common. And so 3 times 2 is going to be a 6. So 6 is my GCF currently. Out of 3 r's and 2 r's, though I can take out the lowest exponent, so I can take out r squared for your GCF. Okay. I'm going to have two terms, since there were two terms up here. And again, you're going to divide to see what's in the middle. 18 divided by 6 is 3. I had 3 r's and I took 2 away, so 1 r. Negative 24 divided by 6 is negative 4. Again, I had 2 r's and I took 2 away, so I'm done. Okay, so this is how to factor out a monomial, and that can be done when there are two terms up here. So why don't you try this one on your own? Press pause and we will go over it. Alright, so when you broke down 45, you should have got 9 times 5, which is then 3 times 3 times 5. Over here, 5, the only thing would be 5 times 1, so they had a 5 in common. So I took out a 5. Out of n4 and n1, I can only take out one n, the smallest exponent. Again, divide to see what's on the inside. 45 divided by 5 is 9. I had 4 n's and I took 1 away, so I had 3. And then this whole thing divided by 5n was just a 1. Okay, so that's how you factor out a monomial with two terms. So now we're going to look at quadratics factoring, which is when your leading coefficient is a squared term. And this is a shortcut because there's no number for my x squared. So again, remember, when the shortcut is a 1, all we have to do is multiply a times c, do our T-chart. A times c would be 42, and then your b term goes on the right side of your T-chart. Let's check our signs. When can you multiply and get a positive but add and get a negative? When they are both negative. So we're going to have two negative numbers. And then I'm going to see all the factors that go into 42. 2 times, I don't know. So I'm going to do 42 divided by 2 to get 21. Let's see if it's divisible by 3. It is. So 3 times 14. 42 divided by 4 does not work. 42 divided by 6 does work. So 6 times 7. Okay. So now I need to see which one of these will get me to a negative 13 if I make them all negative. So I know 6 plus 7 does equal negative 13. So again, once you find your factors in your T-chart, since this is a shortcut, all you're going to write is x minus 6, x minus 7. Okay? So again, this should look familiar because we do know the zero product property is coming up. But again, that's how you factor a quadratic that has a leading coefficient of a 1. So why don't you try this one over here? Press pause and we will go over it. Alright, so you should have multiplied 1 times 50 and got 50 in your T-chart, and then 15 will go over here. I stopped when I got to 5 times 10 was 50 because I knew 5 plus 10 was also 15. So again, I made a little mistake. These should be V's, instead of x's. So b plus 5 and then b plus 10. So again, since those are our shortcuts, I can just write them in my parentheses, okay? All right, one last way is the non-shortcut way when you have a number in front. So when you have a number in front, you've got to bust up the b's. So the first thing you do is multiply a times c. 15 times negative 3 is 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And then your b term is a negative 2. So give me all the factors of 15. Most common one is 3 times 5. One of them has to be negative. So let me put the negative with the bigger number, because 3 minus 5 will get me to a negative 2. Okay, so 3 and negative 5 are my answers, but again, this is not the shortcut. So I'm going to split up 3 and negative 5 for my b term. I'm going to add x's with them since my middle term had an x, and then I am going to bring down my first and my last term. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite these 4 terms down here. So I've got some more room to write. So again, your middle answers are going to go in place of your middle term. That last number will always come down. The first number will always come down. So now that you have 4 terms, you get to factor by grouping. So find the GCF of a 5 and a 3. The only thing that goes into 5 is 5 times 1. The only thing that goes into 3 is 3 times 1, so they have a 1 in common. Out of 2x's and 1x, you could always take out 1x. So now divide. 5 divided by 1 is 5, with that x in the middle, plus a 3. Remember, you can always rewrite this parenthesis, and then divide these last 2 numbers to see what goes in the outside. And negative 3 divided by a positive 3 is a negative 1. So again, your final answer is 1x minus 1 and 5x plus 3. Okay? So you might just see x minus 1 instead of 1x minus 1. Okay? That is how you factor when a coefficient is not 1. So guess what? You get to try this one on your own. Press pause. First thing you should have done was multiply 10 times 2 to get 20. Bring down your b term on this side. List all the factors of 20. 10 times 2, 5 times 4. And notice 5 plus 4 is 9. So 5 and 4 are going to replace this middle term of a 9x squared. And so I did that right down here. I brought down my last number. I brought down my first number. I've got 4 terms, so I can factor by grouping. A 5 goes into a 10, so I took out a 5, and then I can always take out 1x. Divide to see what goes in this middle parenthesis. Rewrite that parenthesis and divide these 2 numbers to find the outside number. Lastly, combine your 2 GCFs on the outside and rewrite the second one once. Okay, so that is a quick review on how to factor quadratics, and how to factor out a monomial. So you get to practice on that so we can be successful at the more steps that we get to include with this tomorrow. Okay, thanks for watching.